The girl had just stepped out of the bathroom when the humming in her mouth suddenly stopped, and the smile vanished from her lips. In the living room, a tall, imposing robber wearing a menacing mask had appeared out of nowhere. Immediately after, another robber emerged from a corner. Without a second thought, the girl instinctively bolted towards the panic room in the back. She thought she had narrowly escaped danger, but the ringleader stared intently at the door of the room. He nonchalantly took out a vial of gunpowder and slowly poured it onto the household clock. Then, he fiddled with the clock's hands, setting the timer for the bomb to detonate. In another corner, the girl trembled as she opened the control panel. Only when she saw the robbers' figures disappear outside the door did she dare breathe a sigh of relief. Trying to calm herself down, she opened the safe in her hand and retrieved a short black handgun. Then, she cautiously stepped out of the panic room, scanning her surroundings. Suddenly, a piercing alarm went off without warning. A devastating explosion immediately engulfed the entire house. Who is this girl? Why is she being hunted so ruthlessly? And will she survive this catastrophe? The story begins a few days earlier. The girl's name is Lisbeth Salander, a world-class hacker. On top of that, Lisbeth Salander is also a vigilante, skilled in martial arts. When she's not working a job, she hides in the shadows to punish the wicked and defend the weak. Because of the painful memories of her childhood, Lisbeth loathes perverts who prey on women. Anyone she discovers will endure punishments and torture that are worse than death. One night, she snuck into the home of a degenerate man, tying him up tight with ropes. Then, using her superior hacking skills, she infiltrated his bank account and transferred all his assets to his abused wife. Before leaving, she made sure to grab a taser and give him a jolt he wouldn't forget. On her days off, Lisbeth uses her own methods to protect justice in the shadows. Until one day, a mysterious phone call shattered her peaceful life. The caller wanted to partner with her on a lucrative job. After some thought, Lisbeth accepted. A mission involving global security was officially underway. The seemingly ordinary man sitting before Lisbeth was named Frank Bander. He was once a leading scientist at the CIA. His proudest research achievement was a piece of software called Firephone, a master key in the realm of nuclear weapon networks. It could not only breach the defense systems of any nation's nuclear arsenal, but even more frightening, in times of crisis, this software could control nuclear weapons and launch them. Naturally, the US government coveted this software. They plotted to use it to achieve undisclosed objectives. After learning the truth, Frank was filled with deep regret. He didn't want his life's work to be used to become a criminal, destroying mankind. So, he rushed to Lisbeth, hoping she could use her elite hacking skills to steal Firephone secretly. After careful consideration, Lisbeth decided to take on this high-paying job. Then, she scheduled a meeting with Frank under the central bridge in Stockholm the next day to conduct the transaction. But they didn't know that in a nearby corner, a pair of eyes was silently watching them. After accepting the mission, Lisbeth quickly got to work. She skillfully typed on the keyboard. Before long, she had successfully infiltrated the CIA's core network and found the target software program. But just as the data transfer progress bar reached the halfway point, CIA agent Ed Winfield detected the anomaly. He was desperate to stop the transfer, but he was helpless. In that critical moment, the admin decided to cut off the power in the office, attempting to physically interrupt the transfer. But fate is always so ironic. Right before the power was cut, the transfer progress bar reached 100%. Lisbeth even playfully left a ridiculously cute emoticon on the screen. Seeing this, the admin immediately flew into a rage. Then, using Syria's powerful global network tracking system, he quickly located Lisbeth's IP address in Stockholm, Sweden. Without hesitation, he immediately set out to capture Lisbeth. In another development, after Lisbeth got Firephone, she couldn't resist her curiosity and opened the software. What appeared before her was a firewall, requiring the highest level password to breach it. After repeated failed attempts, Lisbeth had no choice but to give up and wait for her meeting with Frank. But would things really go so smoothly? That night, Lisbeth dreamed of her long-lost sister, Camilla. The girl was huddled on the cold floor, begging for help. Immediately after, Lisbeth woke up, still shaken. As she stepped out of the bathroom, she didn't expect that there would be an uninvited guest in the house. What followed was the opening scene. Luckily, she managed to hide in the bathtub in time, saving her life. But her computer was taken by the intruders. So, she returned to the panic room. Through the surveillance system, she tried to lock on to the masked intruder's face. But to her great disappointment, there was no information about this man in the database. Lisbeth's mood immediately sank to rock bottom. At that moment, outside the window, a piercing alarm suddenly blared. A large number of police cars had surrounded the building. Without thinking, Lisbeth immediately jumped on her motorcycle and sped out. On the road, she constantly swerved, successfully evading the pursuit and encirclement of the police cars. Then, she accelerated towards the docks. The motorcycle drew a beautiful arc in the air before crashing onto the ice below. Despite the crunching sounds coming from beneath her, Lisbeth gritted her teeth, revved the engine, and steered the motorcycle forward. Before long, she had escaped the police pursuit. Meanwhile, Frank was anxiously waiting at the rendezvous point. Seeing that Lisbeth hadn't shown up, he had a bad feeling. He suspected Lisbeth was planning on keeping Firephone for herself. Understanding the importance of this matter, Frank immediately sought help from Swedish security service. Then, he told the security director in detail about Firephone's powerful capabilities, as well as his dealings with Lisbeth. After listening, the director slowly took out a file. Inside were records of the crimes that Lisbeth had committed. Seeing this file, Frank was even more convinced of his suspicions. At the same time, after struggling to escape the pursuit, Lisbeth immediately went to her ex-boyfriend, Mikael Blomqvist. He's a well-known investigative reporter, specializing in uncovering the truth from the smallest clues. Lisbeth told Mikael about Firephone's function and about the mysterious robber. She also asked him to help her find the stolen software. Mikael, who was still deeply in love with Lisbeth, of course agreed to help without hesitation. Later, Lisbeth went to the home of a hacker friend named Plague. She suspected that the next target of the people who stole the software would definitely be Frank, because only he could break through Firephone's firewall. So, just by tracking Frank, she would definitely be able to uncover the true identities of the robbers. Plague also used his hacking skills to find Frank's last known location. It turned out he was at the Swedish security service. He had now been transferred to a safe house. Lisbeth immediately decided to go there to investigate. With Plague's help, Lisbeth got the detailed address of Frank's location. Then, she quietly approached the safe house under the cover of darkness. She carefully attached a tracking device to the window, but she didn't realize that all her actions were seen by Frank's son. The strange thing was, he didn't tell his father what he had seen. In another development, Winfield also safely arrived in Stockholm. But as soon as he got off the plane, he was taken to the Swedish Security Service headquarters. The sharp-eyed female manager, Emmy, saw through Winfield's purpose in coming. So, she warned him sternly that the CIA had no jurisdiction in Sweden, advising him to behave himself. Winfield, of course, understood the meaning behind her words. So, he pretended to be relaxed and said that he was just there for tourism and had no other mission. Emmy didn't respond. She just coldly handed him a travel guide and left. After leaving the security service, Winfield followed the trail to Lisbeth's house. But by this point, it was a wasteland. However, he still found a file with his picture on it in the rubble. This made him even more certain that the hacker who stole the software was hiding in this city. Almost at the same time, Mikael's investigation also made new progress. He took the pictures of the robbers taken from the surveillance system to a bar, hoping to ask about important information through his relationship with Emmy. But she remained tight-lipped. Just as Mikael was feeling helpless, he accidentally noticed that one of the robbers had a spider tattoo on his neck. So, he followed this lead. Before long, he found a man with a spider tattoo on his forehead through an informant. The man nervously invited Mikael inside and told him everything he knew. The man in the picture was named Otto, the right hand of the spider organization. As he said this, he instinctively touched his forehead. It turned out that the spider tattoo wasn't a tattoo at all. Otto had carved it there with a knife because he had accidentally offended him. Mikael immediately felt a chill and became even more worried about Lisbeth. After returning to the newsroom, he continued to investigate the man in the picture. As a result, at his assistant's suggestion, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Then, he took out a social magazine that was published years ago and found an article in it. It turned out that Lisbeth's father, Zalachenko, was the head of a Russian crime syndicate. The masked man in the picture at the time was standing next to Zalachenko. This discovery made Mikael's brain freeze. Could it be that Lisbeth's father was behind all this? But why wouldn't he spare his own daughter? Meanwhile, the safe house also faced a huge crisis. Otto, disguised as a coffee delivery guy, took out the two agents responsible for protecting Frank. By the time the other guards came to check on the situation, they had all become ghosts under his hand. Lisbeth, who was monitoring the surveillance screen, witnessed this scene. So, she immediately grabbed a weapon and rushed out, heading to the safe house as quickly as possible. However, by this time, the safe house was filled with the strong stench of blood. Lisbeth didn't dare to be careless. She firmly held the gun in her hand and went up the stairs. Finally, she found Frank and his son washing their faces in the bathroom. She immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't expect that as soon as she turned around, she would run into Otto, who had been waiting for a long time. Although Lisbeth tried her best to resist, she was no match for Otto. When some unidentified liquid seeped into her body, Lisbeth immediately lost the ability to resist. Her consciousness also gradually blurred. Seeing this, Otto quickly picked up the gun that had fallen on the ground and pressed it into Lisbeth's hand. Then, he grabbed her hand and pulled the trigger. A gunshot rang out, and Frank collapsed in a pool of blood. Next, Otto slowly stood up and took Frank's son and left. Lisbeth helplessly watched all of this. Her heart was filled with despair and unwillingness. She tried to muster some consciousness. Finally, she fumbled for the pills and used all her strength to crush them. The strong scent made her regain consciousness for a moment. In a chaotic state, Lisbeth staggered out of the house. Every step she took had to overcome the feeling of dizziness and a spinning head. Luckily, she finally found a car. She threw herself into the driver's seat and quickly reviewed the surveillance video inside the safe house. Finally, she found the car that Otto was riding in. She followed the trail of the car and tried to endure the discomfort of her body, started the car, and chased in the direction of the target. On the way, the wind whistled in her ears. Before long, she caught up with Otto's car. Confirming that she was following the right people, Lisbeth picked up her phone and quickly hacked into the control system of the car in front, sending a connection request to Ban, who was sitting in the back seat. Luckily, the boy was smarter than most people. He immediately pressed the button to connect. Then, following Lisbeth's instructions, he buckled his seatbelt. The airbags suddenly deployed. Otto and the driver were also thrown out by the massive impact force. The car lost control and crashed onto the overpass. Seeing this, Lisbeth quickly stopped the car. Then, she dragged her weakened body forward and took Ban away. But as she turned around to prepare to leave the scene, Otto suddenly woke up, took out a gun, and started shooting madly at Lisbeth. Before long, the car's shell was shattered. In a critical moment, Lisbeth suddenly had an idea. Taking advantage of Otto reloading, she quickly dived out of the car and climbed to the top of the control tower. As the bridge was raised, the bridge surface in the middle slowly rose, directly sending Otto into the air. Seeing this, Lisbeth breathed a sigh of relief. But as she turned around, a familiar figure appeared before her. The woman in the red suit was her long-lost sister, Camilla. Lisbeth immediately understood that her sister had taken over her father's forces and was trying to steal the terrifying fire phone. But at this time, she didn't have the heart to think too much. To escape the pursuit, she stole a sports car. Then, she took Ban to her secret base, a radar station deep in the mountains. This place looked old and outdated, but it was currently the safest place to hide. In another development, Winfield, relying on the clues, found the safe house where Frank had been attacked. But by this time, the area was sealed off by the police. He took advantage of everyone being busy and carefully surveyed the surrounding area. As a result, he discovered the tracking device that Lisbeth had left on the roof. Winfield was overjoyed and quickly took it down. But as he was reviewing the tracking content, security manager Emmy suddenly appeared behind him. Winfield instinctively kicked the tracking device out of the way, but he was eventually arrested by the Swedish security service. At the same time, Mikael, after receiving Lisbeth's urgent message, rushed to the secret base non-stop. As soon as he met Lisbeth, he hurriedly told her that the organization behind Otto was called Spider. Hearing this name, Lisbeth's expression immediately became extremely complicated. It turned out that she and her sister had grown up in this organization since they were young. Their father had plotted to turn them into top assassins. But Lisbeth, when she was young, was filled with longing for freedom. So, she defied her father and escaped the dark organization alone. Now, control of the organization had fallen into her sister's hands. This also meant that everything that had happened before was closely related to her. Lisbeth's heart was filled with struggle and pain. But the most urgent thing now was to safely return Ban to his mother. It turned out that this boy held the true activation method of Firephone. Lisbeth knew very well that Camilla wouldn't easily let this go. She would probably come looking for her soon. But now, how could she safely take Ban out of the country? At this moment, a news report on TV caught her attention. CIA agent Winfield was arrested by the Swedish security service and was about to be deported. An audacious idea immediately popped into Lisbeth's head. Wasn't this the best tool? 3 days later, Lisbeth disguised herself as an ordinary tourist and blended into the noisy crowd in the airport waiting room. Then, taking advantage of the crowd, she left her suitcase in place and casually left. A moment later, the abandoned suitcase attracted the attention of the patrolling security personnel. He took the suitcase back to the airport command center, preparing to check whether it contained dangerous items. At this time, Winfield, who was about to be deported, was also being held in the command center. Soon, the security system issued a warning. But when the employee opened the suitcase, he only found a white cell phone, so he threw it into the toolbox next to him. What he didn't know was that Lisbeth's plan had been successfully executed. The hacker software in the phone automatically connected to the internal network of the airport. Next, Lisbeth brazenly walked under the camera. The surveillance system immediately recognized her identity as a criminal. The airport quickly sent a large number of police to arrest her. This happened to fall into Lisbeth's plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Waiting for the right opportunity, she immediately opened the cell through the control system. The policeman on duty noticed the abnormality and immediately stepped forward to check. Lisbeth reacted quickly, locked the door from the outside, and opened the door to the cell where Winfield was being held. He didn't let her down. He stood up without hesitation and rushed out. Following Lisbeth's voice instructions, he found the hidden phone. He successfully contacted her. However, when Lisbeth asked him, Winfield seemed very embarrassed. He said that he must get back the computer containing Firephone, otherwise he would not leave Sweden in a short period of time. But Lisbeth didn't care about his mission at all. She directly took Winfield into a dead-end alley and forced him to agree to her request. Otherwise, he would be arrested by the police again. Under her threat, Winfield could only reluctantly agree to cooperate. In another development, Ban, who was resting at the secret base, received a call from his father. He curiously pressed the answer button. He didn't expect that this action had completely revealed his location. By the time Lisbeth returned to the base anxiously, she discovered that her sister had come with the assassins. Luckily, Ban wasn't injured, but Mikael wasn't so lucky. He was beaten to a pulp by Otto and the others. Next, Camilla ordered the assassination of Mikael. As soon as Lisbeth pulled the trigger, she pressed the switch on the wall, and with Mikael, she fled into the safe room. Otto, seeing her using the old trick again, angrily took out his gun and fired randomly at the lock. But at this time, Lisbeth and the two had already left through the back door, escaped into the forest, and fortunately escaped. But Ban was taken away by Camilla and the others. Watching the car gradually disappear, Lisbeth's mood immediately sank to rock bottom. Now, Firephone and Ban were in her sister's hands. She believed that they would soon get the password and completely take control of the world's nuclear weapons power. But fortunately, Lisbeth had already prepared a step. She had attached a tracking device to Ban. So, the two returned to Plague's house again. At this time, Winfield was also hiding here. After a while, Lisbeth quickly found Ban's current location. It turned out to be the castle where she and her sister had lived when they were children. Although she resisted that place very much in her heart, for Ban's safety, she still decided to go there alone to rescue him. But she didn't expect that this was the trap that Camilla had deliberately prepared for her. Taking advantage of her familiarity with the castle, Lisbeth successfully entered the dark underground tunnel. Then, she quickly dealt with a guard lurking in the shadows. Next, attached the hacking device to the network box. Plague, who was waiting outside, immediately received the surveillance images inside the entire castle. Finally, with Plague's help, Lisbeth easily avoided the guards on patrol and successfully found the location of the tracking device. When she pushed the door open and entered, she found that there was no one inside. The tracking device was thrown into a corner. It turned out that the camera had already detected the device. Before Lisbeth could react, the room suddenly began to spray toxic gas. Immediately after, an assassin wearing a gas mask rushed in. Luckily, Lisbeth's close combat skills were not bad. She quickly subdued the other party. At this time, the poisonous smoke in the room was getting thicker and thicker. Although Lisbeth tried to resist, she was eventually controlled by several assassins and brought before her sister. At the same time, Mikael was also arrested by the assassins sent by Camilla. Helpless, Lisbeth could only force Ban to read the password. Sure enough, after entering the password, the Firephone system was successfully activated. The location of all nuclear weapons hidden around the world was displayed on the map. Seeing that the plan had succeeded, Camilla didn't hesitate to knock Lisbeth down with a stun gun. At that moment, Emmy suddenly appeared at the scene. It turned out that she was the real buyer behind the scenes. In order to get the Firephone software, the Swedish security service had paid a high price to hire Spider. But she didn't expect Camilla to suddenly change her mind and prepare to take the software for herself. Then, she even directly assassinated Emmy. By the time Lisbeth woke up, she found herself locked in an airtight suit again. Camilla stood aside, coldly watching her, seemingly waiting for her to slowly suffocate and die. At the moment of crisis, Plague finally completed the three-dimensional design of the castle. Then, he issued an order to the Winfield who was lurking on the hillside. The two of them worked together and quickly shot down all the assassins in the castle. Realizing that there were snipers lurking outside, Camilla immediately changed her face. She had no time to care about Lisbeth, who was still tied up. She hurriedly took the software and prepared to escape. At the critical moment, Lisbeth finally escaped from the airtight suit. At this time, Camilla had arrived at the back door of the castle and got into the car. By the time Lisbeth chased after her, the other party had already driven away. Fortunately, Winfield on the hillside had discovered them, but as he prepared to shoot, an assassin approached. Winfield could only draw his gun to resist, thus missing the best sniping time. Just as Camilla thought that she had escaped successfully, the car suddenly collided with the injured Otto. The huge impact force caused the car to lose control immediately, then slipped down the hillside next to it. Lisbeth chased after and found the car destroyed, but there was no one inside. So she followed the footsteps and continued to chase. Finally, the two sisters met at a cliff. Seeing Lisbeth chasing after her, Camilla finally completely collapsed. She resented the fact that her sister had abandoned her and fled alone. Then, she couldn't help but ask Lisbeth why she had never thought of coming back to save her in the past 16 years. Lisbeth then burst into tears. Seeing her sister in extreme pain, Camilla became even more disappointed, because after all, it was all her own choice. So, she decisively threw the control computer containing Firephone down the cliff. All sins finally came to an end. At the end of the story, Winfield finally arrived at the cliff. But when he tremblingly opened the computer, he found that all the files inside had been permanently deleted by Lisbeth. He silently looked at the sky. Finally, he could only accept this result. A few days later, Ban safely returned to his mother, and Lisbeth completely destroyed the castle that contained all her dark memories. Here, the movie ends. The movie tells the story of top hacker Lisbeth, who, after accepting a mysterious mission, delves into the dark underworld composed of international hackers, cybercriminals, and government agents. On the road to finding the truth, she not only has to face deadly threats from criminal organizations, but also has to deal with the complex relationship with her sister Camilla. In it, the appearance of the Firephone program has made the story even more thrilling. It's like a key that can access nuclear codes. The world has caused a crazy fight for power among different forces, pushing the plot to a climax time and time again. Ever since Lisbeth accepted the mission to get the Firephone program, she seems to have entered a maze full of traps. Every turn is unexpected, not only adding to the tension and suspense of the movie, but also making viewers deeply feel the complexity and danger of this dark world. At the same time, the movie also deeply explores the complexity of human nature. The relationship between Lisbeth and her sister Camilla is full of complex emotional struggles, finally exploding violently, showing the struggle of human nature in hatred and misunderstanding. In addition, the motives and behavior of the other characters in the movie are also very complex. Under the impetus of power, desire, and interests, they have made actions that are either crazy or cruel, further highlighting the dark side of human nature. Those of you who are interested can watch the original movie, The Girl in the Spider's Web. The value of a movie lies in its reputation, and the value of a movie review lies in perception. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. What do you think of this movie? Please leave a comment below.